This is a rebuild job on a window that's not actually that old. I think it's about 20 years old. So it really shouldn't have blown, and it blew in quite a dramatic way so that the pieces were almost falling out. The lead that was used was a 4mm flat, so big lead. So the conclusion is that because it didn't have a saddle bar and it was in a door, that's why it's blown. I'm going to put a saddle bar in when I reinstall it, but the other thing I'm going to do is use these reinforcing steels. They fit inside the lead canes and they're a flat profile, which means they've got a bit of flex in that direction, but they won't flex in the other direction. That's to say they won't, the window just physically can't blow. These are difficult to use in narrow lead because they are a little over 1mm in their profile, and so they will make your window grow a little. But as the lead is 10mm flat, there's absolutely no problem using these. So in terms of belt and braces, that's what I'm going to do for this window. So I thought it might be interesting for people who've not seen this way of strengthening a window before. So I've got to the stage now where I can put one of these rods in to reinforce, so I thought I'd show you how I do that. So you want to mark it up for cutting, and it should really fit quite nice and snugly into the outside lead so that it offers the most structural support it can. So I marked it up with a pen, and then just chop it with some pliers, and then it fits in like that. So then you just get your next piece. Just give it a quick scrape. I scraped all these yesterday, but they were incredibly difficult to clean up, so I got a bit tired, so I'm giving them all an extra go as I work. So that just fits in like that. So it's quite simple fitting these bars in, but they really do give a lot of protection. I finished leading this window now, and it's come up really small. This is a rebuild, so it basically fell apart in the customer's window, so I've brought it to the workshop to rebuild it. Now when they took it out, they said that it was really too small for the hole, so I put on 16mm lead to give myself a bit bit extra in the size, but I've remade it and it's come up so ridiculously small that I've put now 25mm lead at the bottom and 20mm lead on this right hand side. But I need to change this 16mm up here to 25mm because I've got about 8mm short at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is solder everything except this top piece of lead. I'm even going to solder these joints here but not attach them to the lead. And then I will just wiggle the panel down and put a 25mm piece of lead at the top, and that will give me the extra size I need. The other thing I did, which I talked about earlier, was I put in strengthening bars. Now they add a bit of width, and what I did was I put them in every joint to add some extra dimension. I mean, it will add strength as well, so that's great, but because this is 10mm lead, there's plenty of room inside the lead to put the bars, and that, I mean, it's not a lot, it gives you 1mm, but if you add 1mm, you end up with an extra 5mm. So That was worth doing as well. Yeah, so that's what you can do if your window comes up small. It's always good to have other sizes than 12mm in flat lead. So I've got 10mm, 12, 16, 20 and 25, which gives me flexibility when I come to lead work. I've soldered the joints apart from this top row. So now I'm going to wiggle the panel down and put this 25mm lead at the top. Opening it up to make it as easy to slide in as possible. 25mm lead is quite difficult to work with for lots of reasons. One thing I've never managed to do is stretch it. I just don't seem to be heavy enough to pull on it and make any difference whatsoever. But this is not stretched. As you can see, it doesn't flop about. So I work with it like that. So there we are. Pulled it down. Remove the 16mm and put this in place. Now you have to lift it as you slide it back into place, otherwise you'll catch on these pieces of lead and it won't go home. Now that looks fine, and I've gained what I needed, so now I've got a nice 3mm gap at the bottom, which is about the right wriggle room for when I put the window back, because obviously you don't want to completely tight fit. And now I've got sort of 1.5mm all round basically. So that has worked beautifully. The other reason that 25mm lead is difficult to work with, and as you can see I'm labouring very hard here to bend it, is it sucks all the heat out of your soldering iron. So if I'm doing a lot of soldering with 25mm lead, I get out my other soldering iron, which is not thermostatically controlled and seems to basically be hotter. Now if I use that soldering iron on most of my lead, it would just melt it, because if your soldering iron is too hot, it just melts the lead. But on 25mm lead, it doesn't melt it, and actually it does a better job than this thermostatic one, which I've now turned up to the highest heat. So let's give it a go. So when you start off soldering, you'll find that your soldering iron is nice and hot because it's been sitting there and it hasn't had the heat drawn out of it. This lead is quite old, this 25mm lead, and it's not taking the solder very nicely. If you've got new lead, you don't need to scrub it. It just is clean enough to solder. But this stuff I've had for a long time. So there we go. It tarnishes over time. Much better. Okay. So now I'm going to flip this and solder the other side.